people come and go so quickly here.
No, I don't know many people.
I know too many people. I guess we're both lonely.
Milk was a bad choice.
You crying? No. Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
It's the Al Travis Show, and people do come and go here really quick. We're very happy to know the right folks. I always say a guy knows a guy. That'd be me. We start getting all these articles out. The numbers come out about how well our kids are doing in school. We know how much money we're paying. And I just wanted to put it all together. And I talked to John. John says, you got to talk to Catrin Wigfall. She is the policy fellow on all this for the American Experiment. He made it work. Catrin, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you. We are going to get to all the numbers. I believe you are the person to talk to about this, so that isn't, but you have one chink in the armor. Before I went on, evidently you're a Green Bay Packer fan. What?
Well, they win. I mean, come on now. I have more rings than the Vikings. So let's talk when the Vikings can actually pull something off here.
Okay, so first let's see how into it you are. So you know about Micah Parsons coming. What are your thoughts on that? Because he may be a bit injured. He's got back shots. Are you good with him?
You know, I just wish that there was a little more transparency up front. I mean, you know, we pay a bunch of money for this guy. How did we not know about these injuries here? And so, you know, we'll see. You kind of wonder why his teammates weren't a little bit more, hoorah, like, he's great. Let's, good for him type thing. So, we'll see. But my husband and I just finalized our fantasy football teams the other day. So we'll see how the season plays out.
So these are the things, like, you do fantasy football. I can't even do that. I only then pick Vikings so that I can just watch one game and root for my team. I'm terrible at fantasy football. My boys will tell you that.
Coming into it, he manages my team. We'll leave it at that. So.
That's fair enough.
Exactly.
All right. Well, good luck to your team, but not too much good luck. That's all I'm saying. All right. I really did want to get you on to talk about what's going on, because we see the numbers again, and I'm going to ask you to give us, the real rundown. But basically, half our kids can't read or write at grade level, correct? I mean, that's what the story is. And then we're spending more money than we've ever spent before. We're just not, the results are going down. I have a couple excuses, but give us your broad brush. Am I right with what I just said?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, we are seeing that a majority of Minnesota students statewide aren't meeting grade level benchmarks in reading and math. And I think what the biggest shocker when these results were just released for me is not that test results slightly declined, because unfortunately we have that pattern in the state. For me, was how the Minnesota Department of Education announced it. They didn't even put the proficiency percentages in their press release. They just said test results are stable. They are steady. Since when is having more than 50% of students not at grade level something to tout and something to say as stable or steady? I mean, Al, imagine if your car didn't turn over more than 50% of the time, or your laptop didn't start more than 50% of the time. This is not acceptable. This is very concerning. And to put out a press release saying it's stable, it's steady, let's just carry on with business as usual, I think was the wrong approach.
I would not disagree with you. Now, I'm going to throw a couple of the excuses that I have heard, and you tell me if these are true. The problem with those numbers are we take those tests early in a school year. So let's say little Johnny's in third grade. He takes the test. He has until the end of third grade to get proficient in third grade. Is that true? So we're really saying Johnny might be a little behind, but if you tested him at the end of the year when they can all get caught up, you'd see better numbers. Is that true? The timing of the test is the issue?
So the test is taken at the end of the year. So
that's a lie.
Spring 2025 is when these results came out, and they test students on the standards and the benchmarks that they learned throughout the year. So Johnny has all year to master these standards and benchmarks, and teachers are given these standards and benchmarks from the Department of Education. So if the Minnesota Department of Education isn't pleased with these results, they're the ones setting the standards and benchmarks for students to meet. They deliver them to school districts. Teachers develop their lesson plans around these standards and benchmarks, and then create their lesson plans around them throughout the entire year. and then test students on these at the end of the year. Now, obviously, they're using other tests and that sort of thing, other check-ins throughout the year to see where students are at. But this is the only statewide objective assessment that we have to hold really districts and schools accountable that they are teaching students the basic literacy and numeracy skills that they need to be successful. So if people have a problem with the test, they need to take it up with the Department of Education because this is who we're getting it from.
Okay, then the other excuse, if you will, was everybody's getting put into these tests. That would include people with special needs. That would include, on the spectrum. That would include English as second languages. You put all those in there, and obviously we can't keep up because just look at the number of people with special needs, how it's grown. It's more of a problem with the test sample than the kids.
Well, if people will follow my work on AmericanExperiment.org, they know that I report MCA results. And so for the MCA results, those exclude special education students. So students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, they take the MTAS, which gets reported separately from the MCA results. And so, yes, you can look at test results that combine all students, but I break those, I report those separately just for the very reason that you mentioned, because people will like to say, well, you can't, special education students, obviously they need a little more assistance, more help. They lower the proficiency results. And so I say, let's eliminate that excuse. English language learners, they can and do take the reading MCA. And so, yes, that can, depending on the number of English learners that you have in a school or a school district, that can alter and impact a reading average for the district. You can also look at a school district's reading proficiency with those students removed as well, just to get an idea of where a district is at without those students. But those students also take another test called Access throughout their time, throughout the school year, to make sure that they are learning and growing in their English proficiency as well. So there's a lot of different ways to look at the data, and we love doing that at American Experiment. And so, there are ways to make sure that you're analyzing it correctly, presenting it correctly. And so for people to use these other excuses, they just don't know how to look at the data properly, and they're looking for reasons to
Let me ask you this, though. I'm an old man. Back in our day, if you weren't able to read by third grade, they saw a rapid decline because you just can't catch up, right? All of a sudden, you're having math questions that are reading questions. You got to read through the problem. So by third grade, do you follow along? Do we see then however many years we've been having this 50% or less reading proficiency? Do we see those kids graduating and at the same rate still struggling? Or are we able to catch them up?
So it's tricky. It's tricky to catch students up when they fall behind. Third grade reading literacy is such a key benchmark for future success, not only in future grades, but post your K-12 journey. You see that in post-secondary success. You see that in economic mobility. And just in future career opportunities. So I've written about this a lot for American Experiment. That third grade, being able to read by the end of third grade is very crucial. And that's why you have seen other states invest so heavily in early reading literacy and have said, hey, if you're not reading by the end of third grade, we're going to hold you back. You're going to have to try again. States like Mississippi, Florida, they have third grade retention policies, and they actually hold students back until they can master those third grade reading skills because they recognize how important that is for future success. Minnesota doesn't have that. We don't have a third grade, a statewide required retention policy. It's encouraged if it's decided that a student needs that. So districts get to decide that on a student by student basis, but it's not a requirement. And so, other states have looked hard at this and have said, we need to really make sure that students are getting these skills down in the early grades because of the impact that this has on their future success.
And when we talk futures, let's talk, what of our graduating seniors? What kind of numbers do we have there? Are they SATs, ACTs? Are we sending them off ready to go to college should they want to go?
I'm really glad you brought this up, Al, because
Thanks.
We have we have
It's my
seen
job.
we have seen that graduation rates continue to tick up. In fact, the our last round of graduation rates reported for the class of 2024, the highest it's ever been reported. Unfortunately, proficiency doesn't match that. We have some of the lowest high school reported math and reading proficiency for our 10th and 11th graders. That's when they're tested for reading and math proficiency. And so it's just not matching up. Why? Because back in 2013, we got rid of required minimum test scores for graduation. And so we are graduating students, which should be a big celebration. It's a key milestone, but not when we're sending them out unprepared for future success, either in their post-secondary choices or for the workforce. And so,
Before you go over this, Katrina, if I may,
yes.
did you honestly just say we got rid of the standards for graduating, that there is no standard to graduate, no minimum credits, there's no standard to get that?
Well, there's credits, there's minimum credits that you have to fulfill.
Okay.
Yes, for coursework, you have to take, so many credits of math, so many credits of reading, so many
But
credits
if you
of
don't
science.
pass them or you don't know them, it doesn't matter?
When you take the state assessments, the MCAs, we used to have what's called a graduation exit exam. And so you would have to achieve a certain minimum test score on that in order to receive your diploma. Well, we got rid of that. And so
Okay.
there's no weight behind, have you mastered the reading and math skills? Well, for our 11th graders, when they took the test and then graduated a year later, only about 35% of them met the 11th grade
Wow.
math standards. And so then the next year, they're getting their high school diploma. And so there's no weight behind however they do on the MCAs, because we removed any sort of, weight behind that with getting rid of the high school exit graduation exam requirement.
One
So
last trick question before we go to break, and I got to go to break and we're getting behind. Do you know on average what we're paying per student a year?
we are paying around $16,700 per student.
Wow. 16,000 a student every year, 12 years, and you're getting there and you may not be able to read? That's crazy. We'll be back after this with more. Katrina wrote a story today about somebody I had no clue on. We'll be ahead of the curve here. We'll talk about it right after this on the Al Travis Show.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Dust from gravel roads and driveways does more than make your car dirty inside and out. It gets down into your lungs, and it's bad for your health. Now there's an environmentally friendly solution for your dust problems. It's called DustLock. DustLock can control all your summer dust problems with just one application. Protect your vehicle and your lungs. Learn more at dustlock.com.
Are you kidding me?
You know that comment you said to the radio? The thing that we got wrong?
Clearly, Brussels sprouts are the worst vegetable.
Call us and let the world know your thoughts. 855-257-7469. That's 855-ALS Show.
And we've got our Catrin Wigfall with us from American Experiment, talking all things school related. You wrote an article, I think it came out today, maybe it was yesterday, about some federal tax credit thing. Please talk slowly. It sounds like people are taking my money. Maybe they're not taking my money. I don't know what it is, but spell it out for me. I think folks listening to the program will be so far ahead of everyone else in the state on what's going on. What is this thing? Can you tell me about it?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm very excited about it. It is a federal tax credit scholarship provision, and it has two different parts. So it affects Minnesota taxpayers, and it also could affect Minnesota students. So Minnesota taxpayers, starting January 1, 2027, or I guess backdating for their end of December 2026 for their federal tax returns, they can take an annual dollar-for-dollar tax credit up to $1,700 for any cash donations that they make to federally approved nonprofit organizations that are scholarship granting organizations. And those scholarship granting organizations then will in turn piece together scholarships that will be distributed to eligible students for them to use toward education expenses. So that can be tuition at a non-public school, tutoring, special education therapies. Public school students can use them for supplemental purposes such as tutoring or ACT or SAT prep. And this is now law. It goes into effect, as I mentioned, January 2027. But the kicker is states have to opt in. So states will have to decide, presumably their governor, or if they choose a state
legislator,
decide, do you want to give your state an opportunity to participate? Now, I mentioned it's two different parts. The taxpayers, even if a state doesn't opt in, can still get the tax credit if they donate to a nonprofit in a state that participates. However, if the state does not opt in, the students in that state lose out and will not be eligible for any sort of scholarship to use toward education expenses.
All right, where do I find all this? And do the list of the what do you call them, scholarship granting organizations? Do I have you're not in charge of this program, but it sounds like a way to get money to those who need it and get a tax write-off is basically what I'm hearing, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So once a state opts in, then the state will provide a list of these scholarship granting organizations, and individuals can start donating to them. So we're still waiting on the U.S. Treasury to finalize rules and kind of, clear up some details on what's all involved. But then starting, January 2027, those donations can be made, those tax credits can be obtained, and students will benefit.
All right, I've got to fly. Catrin Wigfall, take a look at her article. You'll know all about it, americanexperiment.org. I thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come here and explain it to us. You obviously know what you're talking about, maybe not when it comes to football, but when it comes to education, you're on top of it. I appreciate you being here, Catrin. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Al.
Catrin Wigfall with americanexperiment.org.
Think about it. A famous politician